Aloha and welcome to our video on homeostasis, diffusion, and osmosis. Today's goals are to define homeostasis, predict the direction of diffusion, and to identify three kinds of osmotic environments. So let's get started. Okay, first thing we're going to talk about is homeostasis. And homeostasis by definition is the ability of an organism to maintain their internal conditions. And it's a little more than that. It's the ability of an organism to maintain its body at the optimal conditions for life. So if we just take a look at ourselves, we're warm-blooded. We like our body to be about 98.6 degrees. And the reason for that is that's where our enzymes allow all these reactions to happen that allows us to live. So if we get too hot on a hot day, let's say, or if we're out exercising, then our body has ways of adapting to that. It's sweating is the primary one, and that'll cool the body off. If it's cold, our body has to warm the body up to that temperature, and it does so by things like shivering. So by being able to keep your body at that optimal temperature, which is just one of many conditions, that allows life to happen. Okay. So homeostasis can affect the way that we look at substances, and that can be the way that they move across the cell membrane into and out of the cell, or where they are in the cell. And there's a passive way that this happens, and it's called diffusion. And diffusion quite simply says that if I have a whole bunch of something in a high concentration, then naturally it's going to want to spread out and fill up the entire space. And that could be the same in an example if we took like a girl and put her in a corner and she sprayed some perfume, that eventually the scent of the perfume would spray out throughout the entire room. So that's one way of diffusion. Now what we're going to look for is we're going to look at cells, and we'll have the inside of the cell, the outside of the cell, and then our cell membrane right here. And you'll notice that the concentration is going to be greater outside the cell in this case. And through this permeable membrane, some of these particles can find their way over here. Now this membrane can control what comes in and out, so it has the ability to say, you know what, we really don't want these in here, and we'll keep them on the outside. And we'll see that important when we talk about the cell membrane. But diffusion means it goes from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration, or to equilibrium, meaning it's all spread out. Okay, the last topic is osmosis, and osmosis is quite simply diffusion of water. And water is a very important thing. Remember, we need water to be alive. When we're talking about osmosis, it's going to be the same way. It's going to go from high concentration to low concentration if it can move. So there are three basic conditions that I want you to be familiar with. Okay, the first is isotonic. Okay, tonic refers to the outside environment. Iso is going to be the same. So that means that the concentration in the cell is going to be equal to the concentration out of the cell, and then water's free to move in and out. Now, we can have two different ways on this. We can have a hypotonic solution. Hypotonic means that the concentration in the cell is greater than the concentration of stuff out of the cell. So the water is going to want to rush into the cell in an effort to balance out those two concentration gradients. And if too much water goes in, then in theory that cell could expand, and eventually it will explode. Now the opposite of that is a hypertonic, and that's where the outside of the cell has more than the inside. Say if we took a freshwater cell and put it in salt water, there's more salt on the outside, so the water from inside the cell is going to rush out and try and dilute out the salt water. So the water will rush out of these cells, and eventually if it's let go, it'll shrivel up and the cell will die. Okay. So that's our brief talk on homeostasis, diffusion, and osmosis. The lessons will go into it in a little more detail. Good luck on them, and as always, we'll see you in the next video.